Welcome to Studio CEO, The Shortcut. This mini series is about the business side of creative work, how studios can actually run, how decisions get made, and how AI can support your thinking without getting in the way of your creativity. These are short, honest conversations about what happens behind the scenes of a creative business, especially once it's no longer just you at your dining table. So let's get started. Being booked out is the phase everyone who starts a design business was aiming for, right? That's the whole point. But before we celebrate, we need to acknowledge that it's actually the phase where most design studios come apart. They start showing all of the cracks. Most studios don't build their way to booked out. They sort of drift there. It just kind of happens organically. Referrals pick up, word spreads, projects stack on top of each other. Like, how hard is it to balance your calendar in the beginning? And then that growth moves faster than the infrastructure that lies beneath. Hi, if you're new here, I'm Rhiannon Lee. I'm a Melbourne-based interior design industry mentor and robot girly, big-time AI fan. I help creative business owners run studios that integrate AI to handle the boring stuff so that they can get on with focusing on creativity. I've spent the last 8 years building and running my own design business after coming from a corporate background in marketing and product development. So I understand both sides, the creative work and what it takes to actually run the business behind it that supports that creative work. I see this over and over and over again. Designers reach booked out through organic growth, which is the dream, right? That's how you want to do it. But organic growth is messy. None of it comes with a HR department or an IT department or systems specialist. You're the Swiss Army knife of everything. None of it came with a manual. It didn't come with a CRM or pipeline management tools or procedures. You don't know how to half the time you don't even know how to track your time. It doesn't come with preset boundaries. So by the time your calendar is full and you are booked out, we're completely winging it at this point. You're making decisions inside of live projects on the go. You're reacting to whatever pops up, whatever's in your inbox when you get in every single morning and on the daily. You're holding every moving part in your own head and nothing feels like it's sort of structured, written out, planned for. It's all sort of like, what spotlights do I have to put out when I get in this morning? And suddenly being booked out feels worse than when you had 0 clients and you were crying on the shower floor because you weren't sure if the business was viable. Being booked out is usually the stage where you don't really know what's coming in next month. You don't have a clear view of your pipeline or a trajectory for your vision. You're just sort of juggling tasks and balancing your availability in your calendar. As I said, just putting out spot fires inside of the projects, emails pop up, client questions, scope creep, screenshots, everything just sort of feels like a complete hot mess express. And everything seems to need your attention. That should be happening: growth work, strategy work, pitching, PR, visibility, all the local area marketing and digital marketing strategy, refining your studio habits. All of that sort of stuff always ends up on the back burner because there's just no space at the end of the day. There's literally no hours left. And I know you care deeply about these elements of your business. I speak to so many people in private coaching and they really do want to do this stuff. They just haven't built in the time because, as I say, we've drifted into this busyness. We just got here organically and now we're doing the do every single day and there's no time for the planning. There's never enough time for prioritizing anything but the busy work. This is where most designers accidentally turn themselves into worker bees instead of the queen bee that they should be when they open a business. And I'll let you think about that analogy for a while because I think what happens is so many of us come into entrepreneurship through working like a corporate role or something else and then moving over. And previously what was important was meeting those KPIs and being a great employee. And we didn't sort of shift that thinking to go, oh, if I'm the founder and I'm opening the business, I'm not employing a CEO, I'm taking that role. And in my experience, designers aren't showing up to wear that hat or take that role until about the 3rd year, where they realize, oh my gosh, I'm booked out and I don't have the business infrastructure to support it. I feel all of the time like I'm lacking or there's a better way. You're not operating like the CEO of your own business. You're operating like the employee that you used to be, which makes sense. Like I said, there was no rule. Nobody handed you over a operations guide unless you're lucky enough to have purchased a business with a full SOP library. Generally, we made it up as we went along. We didn't have a graduation ceremony. No one really gave you permission to be a CEO or said to you, if you're going to do this thing, you're actually in charge of where it goes across the next 10 years and beyond. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And, it feels crazy to show up on day one and be like, I'm the CEO. You don't have a single client. I think I probably had 13 Instagram followers and most of them were biologically related to me. Imagine being like, I'm the CEO and founder right at the beginning. But if you're currently booked out, you've been doing this a while now. The thing is, you're still inside the busy work. You're still inside the business all day, every day, but you're not actually steering it. The business needs you to step outside of the business as often as possible and look at, are we too risk adverse? Where do I need to invest? What do I need to do? You're constantly responding, you're managing, fixing, delivering documentation and doing the design stuff because that's what we really love. But slowly, without meaning to, the business just starts running you into the ground, literally. The burnout is so real. I've experienced it twice in 8 years and I do not recommend. It is a inevitable and terrible part of running a business as a worker bee and not a queen bee. This stage is also a stage where a lot of self-doubt will creep in, or imposter syndrome, because naturally we're thinking, I should feel way more on top of this by now. I've been doing this for 3 years. I should feel more confident. Maybe I went to these networking drinks and she's got it together and I feel like the Hot Mess Express. I should feel more in control. I should know how to run this business. There should be cash flow or, wages. Like, I feel like I don't know the finances well. It's so common to find yourself in peak worker bee mode at this point of business, but we just need to take a moment to recognize that what got you here won't carry you forward. It's not sustainable to just continue to think that you can grow and scale a business without focusing on the infrastructure and building the systems to support that, getting some AI, some automations, maybe delegations, maybe hiring team. There's a lot of options out there, but only a CEO is really the one who's going to say, this has to change. The danger of staying booked out without that infrastructure is that you just lock yourself into, it's a self-sabotage thing. So many designers do it. You lock yourself into survival mode. And survival mode can present and feel like success, but not really to your nervous system. So you stay busy, but you're stuck. You're successful on paper, but you're absolutely collapsing with exhaustion in reality. Waiting for SketchUp wheel to stop spinning at 2 a.m. is not sustainable. That is not alive. And the longer that goes on, the harder it becomes to step up into a true CEO role, because the business never gives you breathing space. It never allows you the space to think and strategize. How you manage your booked out stage is the signal. It's the point where your studio is either running with structure, it feels manageable, easy, or it's begging for it. It is begging you to put some focus into processes, systems, automation, and just the way we do things. A healthy studio needs more than a great designer and creativity. It really needs those automations, those systems, easy, repeatable marketing initiatives, so you don't hate marketing. You just show up and know what needs to get done. Ones that get real return on investment, thinking outside of the square, not just another time killer like Instagram. It needs a leader who has the space to look forward to the 5-year plan or the long-term vision and not just react to the day-to-day, but sort of say, I'm going to make this decision because I know I want to get this result. So if your version of being booked out feels harder than you expected when you started your business, nothing's really gone wrong. It's probably some of the things that I just described, and you're living your best worker bee life when you need to be a queen bee. You've probably just reached the moment where your studio needs you to step out of that worker mode and into CEO and level up a little. And every business thrives on personal development. And this is exactly the phase that Studio CEO is built for. So it's a 12-week business overhaul that gives you permission to make some killer decisions and make some big changes, some business decisions, and clean up the back end and the systems and integrate AI and start to learn some tricks and some productivity tips to really stop living to this fantasy calendar and start remembering that you only have a certain amount of hours in the week, a certain amount of hours that you can do deep focused work, a certain amount of hours you can be on site, a certain amount of hours you can be designing. And I feel like we do live to this fantasy calendar and we've stuck things on top of the other, on top of the other. We take projects on top of projects and then just try to work it out later. And it is slowly damaging so many of you, your health and your sanity. So if that describes you well, you will be very well suited to doing Studio CEO, actually taking some time to mold yourself into the queen bee that you need to be to take the business forward. So there is a big difference between how you run your business in that year 3 where you realize, oh my gosh, it's hard if I don't do some leveling up business wise, to how you run it at year 5, year 7. It evolves, it gets better and better. The earlier you structure this stuff in the background, the easier the forward years will be. Obviously, naturally, that just makes sense. If you are going to wait until your 7th, 10th, 20th year to finally write down a standard operating procedure or think about how you do things or learn the skill of integrating AI, it's going to make things harder for you. So I hope that's helped. I hope that's a perspective that's welcome, thinking about the employee and the employer and the worker and the queen bee, and then repositioning and knowing where does your business best need you. Maybe you hate the idea of being a queen bee and you really want to do the work and only the work, then are you the best person to be the CEO of this business? Maybe you should go work for a different, work under someone else, work for a firm. Or maybe you'd be better on getting an office manager in and actually giving them or delegating to them some of those CEO tasks that you're not prepared to show up for. Food for thought. I'll see you here next week for more Studio CEO Shortcuts.